Hi everyone. Hi guys. Gonna give Tiffany a second. Welcome to our IG Live Spoak Session. We're gonna introduce you all to Tiffany, our new Spoak mentor. I'm Hilah. I am the CEO and co-founder of Spoak, and I'll be chatting with Tiffany today, introducing her to all of you and to our community, and you guys can get to know her. Ask any questions you have for her or for me. So we're going to give her a minute or two. She should be joining us any second. So bear with me. Hope everyone's doing well today. Happy Tuesday. Is that what day of the week it is? Give Tiffany a sec. Hi, everyone. Hiya, guys. Just waiting for Tiffany to join. Hi, Holly. So fun for me to see all of these Spoak members in here. Can't wait for you all to meet Tiffany. Hope you're all doing well today. Never know what to say in these moments while I'm live and we're waiting for the guest. So I'll just busy myself. You guys can ask questions. I've got a whole bunch of questions already for Tiffany. It's going to be great. Oh, I see Tiffany is joining, so any second she should be on here. Someone needs to come up with something to do for these people while we wait in the live. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, welcome to Spoak, whoever just said they joined today. Oh, hey, Daniela. Hey.
Hi.
How you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I was busying myself earlier before you joined and sounded like such an idiot. So glad you're here.
Same. I was like, we're actually dressed like in nice clothes for us. We're usually
I know. Guys, typically when Tiffany and I have calls, we're both in like our hoodies and workout clothes. And so this is like a whole new side of each other we're seeing here today.
Exactly.
Thanks so much for doing this. So yeah, I was kind of giving an introduction before. I'm Hilah. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Spoak, and Tiffany is one of our amazing new advisors and mentors. So we wanted to kind of introduce her to the community, introduce Spoak to her community. This is going to just be like a fun, casual conversation. All tuning in are welcome to ask her or me any questions you have about ourselves, each other. We'll keep the conversation going. Tiffany and I are going to chatter if we're left alone. So cut us off at any point. Yeah, anything you want to add, Tiffany, before we jump right in?
I'm just excited to be here. I am like in one of our spare rooms, so hopefully it's not too crazy echoey because we just moved into a new house. So there's no cool backgrounds. So
I know I'm also in like a warehouse, yeah. Like interrogation lighting. So
yeah, so I'm like, this'll do. We'll get better the next one we do.
Yeah, we're in nice clothes, like baby steps, like one step at a time.
Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly.
Cool. So, I mean, let's start from the beginning, right? Like, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into interior design? Like, let's start from there.
Okay, so I'm born and raised in New York. I always say this, shout out to Queens. I'm really from New York. And, just growing up, I didn't necessarily know that interior design was like a field that it just wasn't something that I was kind of privy to. I didn't know that actual people had careers in this world. But I think like most people, as you like start to move around, you go to college, you go to like get your first apartment, you start like decorating your place. And I found out that I actually really liked it. So I went to school in Miami. I was focused on sports and like working in the sports field at the moment. So I was like, oh, I'll do like sports marketing or maybe work for a team. I met this guy and he worked for Nike and I got fixated on that. And so I ended up working for Nike for 10 years. And again, I started moving around. So they moved me to Chicago. They moved me back to New York. They ultimately moved me to Portland. And when I went to Portland, that's when I bought my first house. And I feel like that was like oh my gosh. Yeah, it was like, now I can actually do this on a larger scale and I own it. But then also like, I actually enjoy doing this, And what happened is my friends would come over. I would do like I'll basically be like the judgmental friend of like, hey, what does your house look like? You know, like, can I help you? And my friends, you know, just know my personality. They just kind of like, all right, yeah, you can do my house. Like, I'll feed you or something.
Right.
And that started like my portfolio because I had then all these like small projects like, oh, I did this person's living room or I did this. And again, I was doing it basically for nothing. And I ended up, when I was at Nike, I ended up having a conversation with one of our VPs there. And I was like, hey, this Nike space sucks. I'm like, for a place that is so inspiring, like such an inspiring company, you know, like people literally travel the entire world to see Nike's campus. And then the outside of the buildings are super cool. But when you go inside, you'd be like this does not feel like, you know, this major sports company. So thankfully they let me redesign our women's space. And once that happened, then all the other VPs asked me to do their offices. And it just got to the point where I was like, oh, okay, my side hustle now could potentially be a full-time job. And so that's really, I mean, the like kind of like the short story of what happened. And 2.5 years ago, I left Nike and started doing interior design full time.
That's amazing. I mean, like your story is my favorites. I know we've talked about this a lot, just especially because Spoak is really trying to like harness this energy of people who maybe like don't know how they're going to get into the field and find their way through their own like creative journey or their own personal journey. So like at what point, like did you at any point feel like, oh, but I'm not, like did anyone make you feel like the industry maybe make you feel, maybe you made yourself feel like I can't do this full time.
Girl,
I don't know.
every day, I'm like, what am I doing? Am I really doing this? Like, it's not more so me. I think what I always say is like, as I'm an entrepreneur and I'm running a business, because ultimately that's what it is. I'm running a design business that happens to be, you know, fun and fulfilling. I'm figuring it out every single day. And there are so many people, like I've run into people where they're either super helpful, like, okay, let me take you under our wings. Like, let me teach you this stuff that maybe I learned in like this fancy design school. And you have another group of people that are like, you actually don't have like this prestigious art school background. And so I'm either going to make things pretty difficult for you or like, I don't even want to work with you. So I think that's just like a consistent thing. And I think that can happen even if you do have like a very like, I went to interior design school, I did this. It's like, you may get that just from being a woman. You may get that from being like, just, it's going to happen no matter what industry you're in. I think it's just figuring out like, how do you work against that? I also find that like a challenge. I think.
Yeah, I find it to be like underestimated as a superpower.
Yeah. I'm from New York. I was like, you don't know what we've been through in New York. We've been through like all these crazy things and we have figured out, we always say like, we're New York tough. I'm like, that doesn't stop me. It's just more so like, I try to go around those people or I try to convince them like, through my work, then I'm going to make you a believer, right? So it's like, you can always make somebody a fan.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, work speaks for itself, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, but like, how did you, when you were first starting, you went from like, I mean, designing Friends House to designing like Nike's campus is a pretty enormous, like, what did you do when you didn't know what you were doing? Like what?
Oh my God, YouTube is like my friend. Like, I feel like I definitely graduated from YouTube University in my early 30s. And I mean, I Googled everything. Like, I literally Googled every single thing. If I didn't know how to do it, I watched videos on it. Like, it's so funny. My intern, who I'm obsessed with her, she's amazing. Like, we go on projects and I'm showing her how to make a bed. And she's like, how do you know how to make a bed so well? I was like, oh, I watch YouTube videos of five-star hotels. And I watch it of the people that make up the rooms. I watch videos like hours of it just to get that information. Cause I'm like, the information has to be out there somewhere. I think if you have any type of like curiosity or like anything inkling, like I'm going to figure it out, the information's out there. You just have to find it. And then also I think the other thing is like having really great mentors. And I know a lot of people always are like, how do I find a mentor? How do I find somebody that I can just ask questions? Like, I would DM people, like when Instagram was like, you know, really at the height of it, I would send messages. I would, if I'm on a job site and I'm working with a subcontractor or an architect, I would say, hey, you know, I'm new in this field. I would love to talk to you and just pick your brain. And then really the great thing about mentorship is you're really just connecting to people you vibe with.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to have a mentor that you're like, oh, I hate this person and I just have to learn from them. It's like, no, you kind of use it as situational. It's like, you can be on a job site, you can learn from people just also from observing them. But then whoever you gravitate towards, it's like, those are the people that you want from a mentor standpoint, because like I communicate with my mentor all the time and it's not just transactional. Like, he's in Greece right now and he's like, sending me things from Greece, like, oh my God, you would love this, like plaster walls and stuff like that. It's like, you want to really have like that type of relationship with your mentor, because you end up having these like off track conversations that lead to, you know, oh, I didn't think about that. And that just like sparks an idea, or somebody you can just, you know, reach out to constantly. So yeah, like mentorship, YouTube, Google. I'm still learning.
Yeah. Hey, still learning every day.
Yeah.
I also, like, one of the things I've always been curious about, and something that our Spoak community thinks about a lot, is like how to find the courage to make the leap, like to go from having a side hustle to be like, okay, yeah, or honestly, even the first time you charge someone, how do you know what to charge? And obviously we cover that a lot in Bespoke School as well, but like what advice would you give someone who is like either that right now decorating for friends and like wants a bit more and just has no idea how to take that next
step? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a, like, I hate when people say this, but it really is like, you just have to put yourself out there. The hardest thing is putting yourself out there and saying like, hey, I'm available, hire me. Or, you know, you basically are like pitching people why they should work with you. And I do it still every day. I mean, it doesn't matter what level you get to. I think as a business owner, you're constantly pitching. Like, the goal, of course, is to have people come to you and say, hey, we love you so much, we just want to hire you. But even still, you're pitching your clients on new ideas, you're pitching the subs, you're pitching like the team. So it's like, you're always doing that. So you have to kind of get comfortable with being able to sell yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And whatever your skill set is at that moment. Like, nobody knows what you can and cannot do until you actually like put it out there. So a thing that, you know, we like to say is like, we don't celebrate our mistakes, and we don't blast those out. So the things that we don't know, we don't say that loudly. Yeah. But privately, I think when I talk to subs and I talk to towel people, I'll say, hey, you know, this is my first time doing this. Can I just sit back and watch you? Or can I ask you questions? You know, and that's how you kind of learn. But yeah, you just got to put yourself out there. You got to literally just like push yourself off the cliff and just go for it. And it really is like a fake it until you make it, right? And even when you make it, you're still kind of faking it because you're always doing something for the first time.
Like, even when I was thinking about when I was trying to get you to join our team and I was pitching you Spoak, right? Like, it never ends.
Yeah, it literally never ends. Like, you just practice your pitch. Like, you should be able to like get your pitch off in 30 seconds to a minute, like who you are, what you do, and why people need to hire you. What's your value?
Yeah.
Right. So if you really think about your why, like what makes you different than other people? Is it your point of view? Is it your project management skills? Is it, you know, the way that you source items, or the way that you look at a room and floor plan? I mean, is it your pure enthusiasm? Sometimes you get clients just from your pure enthusiasm about things. Like, you're so passionate about it. Okay, even though you don't have the experience, let me hire you because I know you're going to put your all in your efforts into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, honestly, confidence and enthusiasm is like, or like the emotional connection with a client goes longer than many others.
Seriously, yeah. It's like they're hiring you. Essentially, like with interior design, is like they've come to a point where they feel like they cannot do this by themselves, right? They can't make a decision by themselves, or they don't feel comfortable in their decision making. So they're hiring you as the expert to make those decisions for them. So it just feels like, yeah, like you're the expert, you know. It's like, that's reassurance enough. It's like, yeah, they did hire me to be the expert, and you know, again, what my value is and what I bring to the table. So you just got to own that.
How about when you were starting out with pricing? Like, how did you think about what?
Oh my God, like I go back, and this girl, so like a really good friend of mine, and she's like a big artist on Instagram and stuff, and just in real life. I charged her $300 to do her entire house. And I was like sweating. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if that's just too much money. I don't know. She's going to be like, you know, like, then what do I have to deliver for that $300? And so I just threw a number out there, and, you know, then I realized what I was doing, and like, okay, this is way too low for the amount of work that I'm doing.
Yeah. Also, notice from the way people react, I find, I mean, even today, people ask me about pricing for certain things, and most of the time it's strategic. Other times you're just like, God, I really hope this one works out.
Yeah.
And then
you're like,
throw it off. Like, oh yeah. And then you're like, oh, I did not charge enough for that.
And you always like, you get into like, you don't know until you're in the project, and you realize like, okay, starting to think about how much time you're putting into it. Like all these things, you're like, actually, am I actually making money? So like, it kind of gets to a point where, well, the first thing I would say is like, as I started charging, I just always charge more for the next project.
Yeah.
So if I charge $100 for one project, then I'm like, I'm going to aim for 200. You know, I'd always try to double it and just see what happens, because worst case, at least I'll land close to where I started. So I'm always evolving, especially each project that you do, each, you know, again, even if you're not even an interior designer, if you're just like running a different business, every year, every project is like, that's adding to your experience. So technically, you know, your price has gone up because now your experience has gotten
Absolutely.
more advanced. Yeah. So it's like, always raise your price, always try. Like, it should make you almost like throw up a little bit when you throw out.
Very
You throw out a price, you should be like, oh gosh, okay, am I gonna send or what am I gonna do? Like, it should make you uncomfortable. And you throw it out there, and then again, it adds value, and it just really adds to your confidence when it does go through. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm actually worth this. So yeah, I mean, I try a bunch of different things. Like sometimes I charge hourly, sometimes I charge based on the project. I'm really still just, again, getting a feel for what works best for my specific company. And you ask a million other designers, and everybody has their own way of how they do it. So it's really just figuring out what works best for you, what's going to keep you motivated through the project, how are you going to make profit. So that's the part of like being a business owner versus I have this craft that I love and I'm doing it and I'm making money off of it. It's completely different when you really think about like your loss, your profits, like all of these things that really, you know, make you an entrepreneur. Yeah. And that's a lot.
Your own form of income. You'll know what you need to charge because it's like survival mode. But
exactly.
Yeah, it's a hustle. I definitely think it's like it's a sticky situation because you have to figure out what feels good. But I think Tiffany hit the nail on the head. Like you always feel a little bit, you should feel pretty uncomfortable every single time.
Yeah.
Like, I can't feel my feet sometimes on these.
Yeah. Seriously. And don't underestimate your worth and your value. I think a lot of the times we kind of talk ourselves out of, oh, well, maybe that's too much, or, but I haven't done this and I haven't done that. And it's like, we need to really stop doing that. You should just go with like, this is what I'm thinking. Why does this logically make sense? What have I done to really, like, if they ask, well, why are you charging this price? What have I done that got me to this price? And then you just leave it there. And it's like, and then you add a little tax because, you know, you never know if somebody might be difficult or just, you know, just to have a cushion that if anything goes wrong, you have a little bit of cushion. So whatever your base price is that you come up with, just add a little bit of tax on there, a little gratuity, and then that's your price. Yeah.
Tax. That's what exactly what we. That's amazing. And what it like, okay, so one thing I think that is really rampant, especially in interior design, is imposter syndrome, right? Because like every single person at some point in this industry has had to like take the leap, right? And no matter how much you can hype yourself up, there'll be moments where people try and drag you down, or like, what are your personal, or how do you overcome imposter or walking into a situation? Like, do you have like a mantra? Do you have like a posture? Is it just like, you just do it anyway? Like, what do you?
I mean, it happens. It's crazy because it happens all the time. Because again, it's just so easy to get in your own head about things. And especially like with like the pandemic and all this stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, like, are they gonna, you know, now they're gonna weed out the new designers and they're only gonna hire like the experts and the people have been doing it for like 30 years. Like, it's all these things that go through your head. But like, I just literally, I'll put on some music. I call my boyfriend. My boyfriend is like Coach K. He's like, you can do it. Like, he's like sometimes so aggressive with his thing. He's like, get in there. You can do it. You're qualified. I don't want to hear anything else. And I'm like, yeah, I am qualified. Like, okay, you know? So sometimes you just got to like, I'll listen to speeches and stuff on YouTube. And again, I'm just telling myself like, my faith is really strong as well. So it's like, if I wasn't put here to do what I'm doing, then why would I be here, right? So it's like, I have value. I have a unique point of view that I present to the world. And it's like, I just need to own that. So it's very, like I said, it happens. It's very few times that I show that to clients. Cause I mean, yeah, like you got to walk in, you're focused. This is what I do. This is the value. If you don't like it, let's figure out how to make you like it. But I'm here, right? And I'm not going anywhere. So you have to have that level of confidence when you like exude that to the outside world. But it's okay to like, you know, just have your moments where you're like, okay, I'm not quite sure about this. But yeah, you just got to own it. Like, you own it. You're here for a reason. God wouldn't put you here for something that was mediocre, right? It's like, I totally joke around about this. It's okay. This is a random thing, but I feel like I just want to say it.
Yeah.
So two things, right? It's like, I have my quote of, Robin is only good until you know Batman exists. And so I always say to people, I'm like, just imagine you walk into a coffee shop, right? You're trying to date somebody, and Robin walks in and he's cool and he's got his little cape and he's got a little car and everything. You're like, oh my God, it's a superhero. You start dating Robin, right? The next day, in walks Batman. And you're like, oh my God, I should have waited for Batman, right? Like, this is a real superhero. It makes Robin look kind of like mediocre. So it's like, you have to really believe that you are the Batman of whatever it is you do, right? Like, I always am like, I'm the Batman of this. So it's not going to get any better. You may have somebody that's more experienced or has all these other things, but nobody is me. And again, you don't know that you're messing with Robin right now, but Batman's here, right? To save the day. And then, and the other thing I like to say, which is another thing a friend of mine reminded me of, is I had this like Beyonce quote or whatever. And I was telling her, she was saying like how hard it is to go from, you know, I worked for a corporate, what is it, a $50 billion company for 10 years in my life. And I thought maybe that was as good as it was going to get, right? I was going to excel there and be this CEO, whatever, and it was going to be awesome. And then it wasn't. It just, my dream changed, my reality changed through my experiences. And it's really hard to just leave something that's comfortable. So my Beyonce analogy is like, imagine you walk into a coffee shop and Beyonce, she's making coffee at Starbucks. She's just making her little coffee. And she makes some good coffee, girl. She makes some good matchas and some good frappuccinos. And she could just do it all up. But it's like,
cappuccinos, okay? I'm here.
But it's like, girl, like when you think about it, it's like, God didn't put Beyonce here to work at Starbucks.
Right.
Right? Like,
that's God, a no-brainer.
Yeah, like God put Beyonce here to do bigger and better things that's going to change the entire world. And then she could buy the damn Starbucks if she wants to, right? So it's like really thinking about your values. Like, don't sell yourself short, because if you think about what you're here to do, you know, you could end up being so comfortable in a position that you never reach what you're supposed to like acquire, right? And what you're paid there for. It's like, I just don't think that we're all here just by happenstance. I think that we all have value. And changing the world, and however that looks like for whatever, you know, we're passionate about is important, and it should be fulfilled. And for me, as a designer, it's like, yeah, part of that is making really cool aesthetics, right? And just making people's houses just look really awesome. But it really is about the feeling that it evokes for people. For me, you know, I always talk about me being adopted and just like what home means to me and how personal that feels. And I think everybody experienced that during the pandemic, that we had this thing and this place, and it didn't feel the way that everybody thought it was going to feel. Some people were like, great, I've already been, you know, an introvert or a homebody, my place feels good, I can last through this. And other people, it was kind of like, oh, I just feel uncomfortable, it doesn't feel finished, it doesn't make me feel relaxed and, you know, refreshed. So it's like really trying to implement, like, what is that feeling that my clients want to feel, and how do we create that so that when they go out into the world, they have this place that they can come back and reset. They have this place that's consistent in the energy, because the world is inconsistent, right? So so that's what interior design means for me. It's really deeper. It's like, it's almost like mental health. It's like,
I was just say, I think a lot of people, especially like we talk about this a lot at Spoak, I think so much of it, and you and I talk about this a lot too, like interior design and mental health support are not mutually exclusive. Like and also very often interior designers can also feel like therapists, right? Like they're helping people work through what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel secure and loved and comfortable. And that is ultimately like a very personal.
Girl, I'm fixing marriages, okay? I'm fixing marriages. I am making men feel seen in their space and giving them value. Like every time I have a couple, it's always like the woman's like, okay, this is what we're doing. And then the guy's like, I want to do this. And she's like, that sucks. And I'm like, no, come on. You have a voice too. Like, how do we make this work? You know? So it's like, you literally are this therapist. I'm in people's homes. Like, I'm in the most personal, like everybody doesn't let people in their houses, right? So it's like, we're really intimate, and just, again, like I said, I'm fixing marriages and making things easier. Like, people fight about a lot of stuff, and building homes and redoing your home. And once you've been married and all this stuff, it's like, that can be the focal point of a divorce sometimes. And so I feel like I'm really like, that's why I'm here. I'm saving people's marriages. I didn't even know that. I feel great about that.
I'm very proud of you. We're creative spaces. I mean, you're really, I completely, like, I believe interior design is so much more than the world will make it out to be sometimes. It's a very personal and inspiring journey, I think.
Yeah. And it's also like, it's interesting because I'm actually like in my forefront. I was like, oh, I have to get out of here at 9:45. My boyfriend is in an auction right now for his art. So I'm like looking at art. And so art is such an interesting thing because it's like, when you think about art, you think about it's the same materials, right? Like maybe everybody has access to the same materials, but how they put it together makes it really special and unique. When you think about interior design, it's like anybody can buy that couch, right? And these objects, but it's how they're actually like putting all these things together that is like, how are you, I would say like, how are you activating my five senses, right? Like have super sensitive skin. So I think about like, when I'm laying on a couch, how is that fabric interacting with my skin? Is it irritating? Is that going to change my experience? It's like, really thinking about all of these things and how it all comes together. And it's like when you eat a certain type of food and it's sweet and salty and your body's like, oh my God, like what is this? It's like interior design can have
It's
that
like
exact,
for interior.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think when I also like really connected on when we first started talking to one another was just this idea that I felt, you know, especially like this is a big part of Spoak's ethos, that interior designers are basically artists, right? Like they're creatives. And I don't think that the world has necessarily treated them that way. And just like you can, for example, like want to take up pottery, you can go to a pottery studio and like get your hands dirty and learn in a creative and safe and supportive place. And we basically wanted to create the same environment for people who are like artistically inclined towards interior spaces. And you really connected with that there was this idea of like you're basically a painter, right, with a different canvas and different materials, and it's evoking an emotion, you're making a statement, like just like art in all of its other forms.
yeah. And I think that Spoak is such an interesting and amazing place because it's a community. Because again, you're on this journey as an entrepreneur. If there's other entrepreneurs in here, no matter what you do, you know, it is lonely. Like there are times where you could go without speaking to people for a really long time, only virtually, or, you know, whatever. So it's like, it is a lonely experience, but to have a community where you can actually go and you have people at your fingertips that you can ask questions, it just makes it easier to be able to maneuver through the unknown, right? It's just like,
Yeah. And like those leaps, I mean, like, not all of us have a boyfriend we can call who can be our community can be that for you. And that also happens a lot, both inside of the community and like even for me and you, for example, like a lot of our calls are half like about Spoak and they're half just like us venting about, and we have very similar experiences, even though we've started two very different businesses. Like, and I think that just goes to show that like leaps of faith, pursuing your passion, these are all like very common at their core, even if the actual execution feels really different.
yeah. And it's everybody's experience is different, but that's the great thing about it is like there's going to be somebody you're going to talk to and it's going to be like, I went through VC funding and easy, and it's like, great, I became this $1 billion company, and it's like that's somebody's story, but your story may be a little bit different, right? And so it's like it's really embracing that and then adding that back into whatever your business you know, ethos and model is like, how does that experience also make your business stronger? Like what have you learned from that makes you, you know, the skill set that is, you know, not comparable to anybody else. So it's like all of those things, I think add value. And just, you know, it's like, it's good seasoning for the story and for the company.
Yeah. And like, that's what makes you, back to your original point about Beyonce, that's like what makes you someone who was put on this earth to do something very specific, right?
Exactly. And if anybody works in a coffee shop, I'm not saying anything bad about coffee shops. I'm just saying you might be Beyonce. You might be.
You are Beyonce.
You are Beyonce. Well,
Yeah.
your version of Beyonce. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess one of the questions I also have for you is, and I know we only have like 15 more minutes. So also, by the way, if you're on the live and have a question for Tiffany or myself, like please don't hesitate to ask me. But one of the things I also wanted to ask is like, you know, so you get into design because you love like the artistic part of it, right? Like that part, I think a lot of everyone on this call can understand and empathize with, or not call, live conversation. But I think one of the challenges that we just mentioned is you're also like therapist, right? It's a lot of social skills. It's a lot of like psychology. And like, what if that isn't your strong suit? Like how did you learn these?
Look, I'm like, that's why I'm like laughing so hard. I am such an introvert.
Same.
I am such an introvert that sometimes I'm so overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to people all day today. Like, mine's gonna explode. But I think it's like I'm able to at least turn it on and off, where it's like we always joke, but like when you need to make money or you need to, then you're an extrovert, right? It's like when you need to actually put the business first and show up, I can talk to whoever and be as charming, and then I need to retreat. I think what I've noticed, and I think which is really cool about just the entire business of interior design is, you know, you guys, like you scroll on Instagram and you'll see a designer and you're like, where are her clients? Like, I never see this person's clients. I only see like her house, or, you know, she's working with brands. And I think what's really interesting about this is like, you can actually have this skill set of loving design, and you can work with clients and be the most social if that's something that you like love, or you can just inspire people, you know, digitally or from afar, and you can be like working on your own house and working on your own brand partnerships. And I think that's what's really great, and like what I love about the balance of that is, yes, I can be with clients, but then I also can just like make content that inspires people and work for myself essentially. And I'm my own client, which is a lot
Yeah.
easier to deal with at times. So, you know, that's a really interesting thing about this field. I don't know that every other field has that, you know, where you get the ability to retreat.
Absolutely. And I think also going back to interior design feeling like artistry, I think there is also something really compelling. There are an infinite amount of ways to monetize.
Yes.
Just like, it doesn't need to be clients or divorcing couples or, you know, like what actually fills your bucket. There is so many opportunities that beyond just client work that I think is really empowering, and the world is changing, right? And like, yes, we see it with Spoak very much, like brands want to hire you, create it. There is an enormous amount mentorship, like the Spoak mentors can monetize that ability. And so I think there's an enormous amount you can offer. And if counseling clients isn't
your thing, then you can just step back and do other things. You can create products. I mean, there's so many things that you can do to inspire people and still be in that field, which is really interesting and unique. I do see a couple questions.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at. I was getting at Holly's question when I asked you about like what to do about the social aspect, the emotional aspect about the job. And I think we've got a question here about how to get more clients, like especially I think if you don't have friends, for example, who want your house decorated, or Nike executives maybe, like what do you do if you're just starting one, especially in person client?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, you showcase your work in whatever capacity that looks like, right? So maybe it's CADs, you're creating a bunch of renders or AutoCADs, and you're kind of showcasing like your mindset, so people can get a sense of the type of design that you do, or your aesthetic, or how you just think.
And you can do that also with Spoak's tools. You can
totally do that with Spoak, and it's a really like easy way to do it as well. So you don't have to like try to figure all these difficult things out. But so that's a great way, is having that portfolio. But like, so funny, because the other day I was like, okay, I'm going to take the rest of the year and just kind of finish up my projects. But when COVID started, I'm like, I will knock on everybody's door and put a flyer underneath and say, there's an interior designer that lives right down the block from you.
Yeah.
She will design your house. It's like, you really got to get creative. And sometimes, again, it's just having conversations. Like, I'll have my intern, they'll go to, you know, certain interior designer or home decor stores and talk to the people there and say, hey, like, when you have clients that come in, do you guys offer interior design services, or can I leave my card? You know, so that people can contact me. Like, I am queen of having a conversation with somebody and being like, oh, you just bought a new house. Okay. Like, and another thing that's really good is you can actually try to align yourself with other realtors, figure out who's building things in your neighborhood that you're like, maybe, oh, there's apartment complexes potentially where maybe you can do like, you know, one of the model apartments, or if there's a builder that's, you know, starting to do a new development. It's like literally just sending emails or reaching out or trying to just meet them in person and just really just getting to know you. I think everybody has that like pay it forward kind of mindset where somebody helped them. If people like your energy, they like, you know, how you're conversing with them, and they just feel like there's something about you that's pretty unique and they want to work with you, it's like people will give you that opportunity. As well as another amazing thing to do is like work with another interior designer and be an intern or be a junior assistant. Maybe that's not your long-term goal. You know, you want to own your own company, but working with a familiar face or somebody that's already in the industry allows you to understand how they work, and the people that they're working with, but it allows you to build your own unique and, you know, unique connections to the people that, you know, they're aligned with. So that's a great way to get new clients. But again, a lot of it is like, I do social media too. Like I've started doing like e-design at the beginning of the pandemic. So just getting like, you know, 1 hour consults with people that maybe don't have like a full house that they're ready to design, but maybe it's just a room, and starting to build that up. I mean, I'm thinking long-term all the time and thinking about when that person does buy a house, did they have a really good interaction with me on our 1 hour consult? And now they can hire me full-time to work.
Right. And I think that's also one of the special things about interior design is it is such a journey, and some projects actually like never really end. It's more like once you get a client, you're with them hopefully like throughout their entire living journey and experience. And so I think it's also a lot about creating connections and not just like transactionally getting a client. Exactly. I think also, and you and I have talked about this a lot too, but I think there's a scrappiness has a PR problem. People call it shamelessness, right? But like it's not the same thing. Like hustling to get what you need to make your business work in the beginning is an incredible skill, and like not being afraid embarrassment or the failure.
Yes.
Incredible skill. And like I did the same thing as Tiffany for Spoak. Like I showed up, I left business cards at home decor stores. Every single person I followed on social media, when I saw they were moving, I DM'd them like, you should try Spoak. Like it was like, it's an act of love, right? It's like, it's investing back into yourself. It's creating, manifesting in real ways what you want from.
Another thing to do, this is like so bad, but I'm going to be really honest with you guys. You can lie about stuff, okay? So what you could do is, like, I was my first client. So I made a rule when I first started. I was like, I'm not going to say who the clients' names are unless it's like somebody big time and we're at that point. But I would be like, yeah, for my client's bedroom, but it's like my bedroom.
Right.
So it's like, I put it on Instagram and it's like, oh, the people are like, oh, she has clients and who's this? Or I'm switching things out and showing things. So it's like, you can be your own client. You are your own client. You know, your mom is your client. It's like, you don't need to say this is for my mom's room. Nobody needs to know that. It's
right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen, I don't know if any of you have seen the Amy Cuddy TED Talk about physical posture and how much like faking it till you make it is like psychologically, actually scientifically proven to work. Like you can convince yourself that you are more powerful than you are by standing in a certain position. You have to stand in the position for 2 minutes, by the way, but it's like this position with your arms out and your chin.
I love it.
Actually, I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Continue.
Okay, no. So my point was that, like, generally speaking, that's a physical posture, but the same is also true for your attitude and your, like, walking in with basically like swagger, right? But being like, yeah, I have clients, I have a business. Like, the only person who knows whether you actually have clients or actually have a business is you. Like, and you decide. That actually goes back to pricing too. Like, if you charge the last person $50 and you're charging the next person $500, you're the only person that knows that.
Exactly. And then also, like, another thing on the flip side of that is I am pretty humble in certain things. Like, when I don't know something, I'm very upfront and honest. So there's no expectation of like, oh yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, I've done that. I built 20 houses. Like, that's a lie, right?
Yeah.
But so I'm like, this is my first one I'm building. And I'm very honest about that. Like, are you okay to go alongside this journey with me? I'm going to have questions. It's going to be a little bit different than maybe other designers that you work with. So when you put yourself out there and you're actually really honest of like, this is what I know and this is what I don't know, people want to help you because they're like, oh, you're not, you know, when you try to say like, I'm this big person and I've done all this stuff, and they're like, all right, let me prove her wrong, right? Like, and they don't really extend the handout to you. So it's like, just sometimes you just put yourself out there, be very honest. And again, there are really good people out in the world that are willing to help and that are gonna, you know, you DM them or you ask them questions. Like, people are pretty awesome when you put the ball in their hands, and you got to give them a little bit more credit than I think we normally do. Yeah.
Fine line, I think, between confidence and modesty, right? Like, you want to be confident in your own ability and feel free to feel like, if you've designed with any specifications before, whether yours or someone else's, then you ultimately designed for a client, right?
Yeah.
You need to go to your
can I go in the living room? So is I think it's up right now. It's in the Phillips office. It's like a big deal. It's a big deal.
No, you have to support. He's your height. You have to
take the phone with me at least. Sorry guys.
Don't be. This is what supporting artistry looks like. I love it.
Okay. Is it now? Okay. Well, maybe we just like kind of end it right now, so I'm not just on here. But yes, it's a big deal. So he's very excited to.
No, go. We'll do another one of these soon. I see some questions now. Yeah, Tiffany and I are not advocating for straight up lying about skills you don't have, but you can certainly give yourself confidence if you need to by filling in some truth.
And you guys just send me DMs if you have questions. I would love to answer your questions and be helpful. I feel so bad that I have to go, but
No,
send me
she's
questions via DM. I would love to answer the question.
mentor, so you can actually just, if you join Spoke, you can just talk to her one-on-one.
You can do that as well.
Don't forget that.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. Good luck with the auction.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.